Hello and welcome to the first episode of this Roblox Studio Tutorial series. This series will have multiple episodes where you will learn building, scripting, UI designing, and many other things about Roblox Studio. In this episode, you'll learn how to download Studio and you'll learn the basics of building and the particle system. At the end of this series, you'll be able to make almost anything on Roblox Studio. And at the end of this episode, you'll be able to make something like the thing you're watching right now. Let's get started by downloading Studio. Go to create.roblox.com. And I'm assuming you can follow the instructions from there. If you can't, you can watch another tutorial on YouTube lol. If it's not your first time opening Studio, there is a high chance that a window like this pops up. Just click Ignore. As you can see, we have 4 tabs here. In the My Games section, you can see the games that you can edit. In the Recent section, you can see your recently edited games. And in the Archive section, you can see your deleted games and bring them back. Now let's create a new game. There are a lot of templates, but I'll use the default one, which is the base plate. And we might take a look at other templates in the upcoming episodes. Warning: practice makes perfect. When I show you a new thing, pause the video and try to do that thing by yourself. If you didn't understand what I said, rewind the video and look at what I'm doing. If you still don't understand, join my Discord server and ask me in the Dev Help chat channel. Don't hesitate to ask any question, and you can ping me too. Permanent Discord invite link is in the description. Join it even if you don't have any questions. And don't forget, practice makes perfect. Let's get back to the video. When you first open Studio, the interface might seem complicated, but it's not as complicated as it seems. This is the Explorer. It's where all of the things in your game are contained. And the stuff that you see around you is the workspace. It's like a universe where you can place things. And I enabled this thing called View Selector. It allows you to change your camera orientation so it's exactly facing right, or front, or any other direction. And you can enable/disable sections like Explorer or Toolbox from the View tab. As I told you before, Workspace is the thing that contains everything around you. For example, let's select the spawn location by expanding the workspace in the Explorer. You can deselect it by clicking outside of it, and select it by clicking it. And you can go into the Model tab and lock the part so you don't accidentally select it while building. For example, the base plate is locked by default, so if you want to select it, you'd have to select it from the Explorer. As you can see, I can't select the spawn location because it's locked. But if I unlock it, I can select it. And look, now I unlocked the base plate so I can select it without the need of the Explorer. And you can also lock/unlock things in its properties. You can also do other cool stuff using properties, which I'll explain in a minute. But for now, I'll just relock the base plate so I don't accidentally select it. You might have noticed the Team Create box. Team Create is usually for collaborating with others, but I enable it on my solo projects too because it has an auto-saving feature. Again, if you don't see it, you can enable it from the View tab. And you can also drag and drop it to the position you want it to be at. Now I'll save this place to Roblox. And by the way, there is another way of saving your game to Roblox, which is clicking File and then Save to Roblox. I'll name this place Roblox Studio Tutorial. And I'll enable Team Create even though I'm not going to collaborate with someone because, as I said, it has an auto-saving feature. For example, if your PC crashes and you forget to save, there will be no problem with Team Create. I pressed save and it's loading the place. And now, there I am, inside the Team Create box. I'll now insert a part. Parts are like Roblox blocks, and you can also drag and move them. If you go into the Model tab, you'll see a section called Snap to Grid. As the names suggest, Move snaps the movement and resizing to the grid, and Rotate snaps the rotation to the grid. As you can see, I'm changing the value next to rotate, and the snapping factor changes with it. You can also see and change the orientation from the properties of the part. Notice as I rotate the cube on the y-axis, aka the green one, the y value of the orientation changes. And if I rotate it along the other axis, the other values change with it too. I'll set its orientation to 0, 0, 0. If you want to create a copy of something, right-click it on the Explorer and copy. And then paste it into wherever you want. But there is a shortcut for it, which is Ctrl-C and Ctrl-V to paste. And you can press the delete key to delete. But if you don't want them to stack on top of each other when you copy and paste, use the Ctrl-D shortcut to duplicate. I'll now build something using the things we learned. And if you're wondering how I switched between moving and rotating without using my mouse, there is a shortcut for those too. Now let's grab one of these cubes and rescale it. If you want to rescale it while keeping the center same, you can hold the Control key while rescaling. And if you want to rescale it while keeping the proportions the same, you can hold the Shift key while rescaling. I'll close my movement grid snap and build a basic structure. As you can see, after I rotated the object, I moved it like this. How did I do that? If you press Ctrl-L, you can switch between local and global axes. I will duplicate this part and create a red block. First resize, then reposition, and then I'll change the color using the properties. I'll use the brick color property, which has a lot of pre-made colors. I'll show how you can highly customize your part's color later on in the video. Let's say that you want to snap an object to the surface but it keeps going through. To fix that, you can enable collisions, and the things that you're moving / resizing / rotating will stop when they collide with another object. If you're wondering why that's useful when you can just grab the object, the answer is that when you grab an object, it completely snaps to the surface, as you can see. But if you want to make that part touch the surface without changing its orientation, enabling collisions is the best choice for you. There are so many properties to explain. I'll explain most of them in the later videos. But one of the properties that I'll explain in this video is the cast shadow property. It controls if a part casts shadow or not. And if you don't want to be limited by the brick colors, you can use the color property. The color property offers 16 million different colors to choose from. You can change a part's material using the material property, but I recommend using the material manager since you can actually see the materials that you're choosing. Let's set this part's material to slate, or maybe rock. There are a lot of possibilities. I'll explain how you can make your own custom / AI generated materials in a later video. But for now, that was it for the materials section. The reflectance property determines how well a part reflects the sky. But it doesn't reflect other parts near it. But if you want it to reflect the other parts near it, there is a technique that I'll explain in a later video. And the reflectance property doesn't work with some materials, so I changed the material from marble to smooth plastic. The transparency changes a part's transparency. More transparent equals more you can see through it. Let's make that part invisible and then a little bit visible. If normal moving feels too fast or too slow for you, you can make it slower using Shift. And you can make it faster using your scroll wheel. You can select multiple parts at once using Shift. But if you try to select multiple things using Shift in the Explorer, it will select everything from point A to B. But you can just use Control if you just want to select those things and not the things in between. Here I'm sometimes using Control and sometimes Shift to make it easier for me to select. You'll get used to it with a little bit of practice. Now I'll select these 3 parts and I'll group them. As you can see, there is a model with those 3 parts in it. And you can also ungroup that model. You can use the shortcuts Ctrl-G to group, and Ctrl-U to ungroup. Now I'll change this model's name. You can change its name by right-clicking and selecting Rename, by going into its properties, by pressing F2, and by double-clicking it. I'll change its name to Weird Thingy. If you want to select something inside a model, just hold the Alt key while clicking the thing that you want to select. I'll select this part and rename it to Red Part. But when renaming a thing, be sure that it doesn't have any spaces and that it only has letters and underscores. Because when we start to script, it will be easier this way. Now I'm renaming my objects so they don't have spaces. Okay, I finished renaming the objects. Now let's change the color of the floor. I changed the color of the floor, but what is this? Why is it glitching? It is called Z-fighting. It happens when 2 faces intersect and the computer doesn't know which one to render. To fix it, you can just resize one of the objects so they don't intersect anymore. But if you resize like the way I did, there will be a visible bump in your build. So let's undo it. I will show you the proper way of resizing to fix Z-fighting. First, you should find the axis that you want to resize. For me it is the red one, so I'll resize the x-axis. Second, increase or decrease it by 0.001, that way you'll get rid of the Z-fighting without leaving a visible bump. Let's organize the workspace a little bit more. I will group these green, blue, and red parts which I made to represent the x, y, and z axes. Red for x, green for y, and blue for z. And these axis colors apply in the 99% of 3D applications like Blender, not just Roblox Studio. And if you're wondering how I made those, I just got a part, set its material to neon for it to glow, duplicated it, and rotated and recolored the duplicated parts. Now I'll select them by holding Alt and Shift and then delete them using Del. Let's organize the workspace a little bit more. But I don't want to use more models since they require you to press Alt while selecting the things inside them. I'll use folders instead. Folders allow you to select the things inside them without needing to hold the Alt key. But most times models are more useful than folders because they have more scriptable properties. But folders are just made for organization purposes. Now I'll rename this folder to Part and Axes. And now let's play the game and see what we've made so far. What in the David Baszucki is happening? Everything is falling apart. Look, everything we made fell apart, and that's because we didn't anchor our parts. I can't select the parts, so I'll first click the select. So basically, anchoring a part makes that part not affected by gravity or any other external forces. As you can see, the base plate and the spawn location are anchored so they didn't fall down. But if I unanchor the base plate and play the game, the base plate is going to fall down with the other unanchored parts. So you should always anchor the parts that you don't want falling down. You can either anchor them from the top menu or the Properties tab. But I usually use the top menu because even though when you select multiple parts, the anchor property shows up in the Properties tab, it doesn't show up when you select a model and want to anchor every part inside that model. But the anchor button on the top bar is always there, and you can use it when you want to anchor every part inside a model. As you can see, they are all anchored. And you can anchor every part in the whole workspace with just one click too. But I don't recommend that because you might have some things that are supposed to be unanchored. I'll give an example in a little bit. But for now, let's play the game. And nothing falls down as you can see. But I have to jump if I want to get on this structure. Let's remove that annoyance by adding a slope right here. Probably the first way that came to your mind is inserting a part and rotating it to make a slope. But it is not the best way since it's hard to align without some plugins that I'll talk about in later videos. The best way is to insert a wedge. Wedges are right triangles and they can be used as slopes too. I pressed Ctrl R 3 times to rotate it 90 degrees 3 times. And then I'll resize and reposition with collisions on so it doesn't go inside the wall. But it still isn't aligned perfectly and it's almost impossible to align it perfectly without grid snap. So I'll go to the Model tab and enable grid snap. You should enable grid snap before even starting to build. But I disabled it on purpose to show you the consequences. Now because I didn't enable grid snap at the start, I have to manually align those parts sizes. This is a boring process so I'll speed up. And don't forget to enable grid snap before starting. And before speeding up I want to say one more thing, when you drag an object, it automatically aligns with the grid as you can see. Okay, now speeding up. Do you remember Z-fighting? I'll decrease the floor's size by 0.001 to prevent it. Okay, now that everything is snapped to the grid, we can continue. I'll copy the floor color and paste it to the wedge so they have the same color. And I almost forgot to anchor it. I'll anchor the wedge. Let's play the game again. And now I can walk on this structure without needing to jump like before. Good progress. Now let's make some kind of a door that you can walk through. I'll start by duplicating and rescaling the floor. And I'll put it to the corner, it'll be like a door frame. And now I'll introduce a new property called shape. You can change a part's shape with it. I'll make this door frame a cylinder. But it's rotated the wrong way. To fix it, you can either rotate and rescale the cylinder manually, or you can use a plugin called Cylinder Rotate. You don't know what a plugin is? Plugins are the things that basically make your life a lot easier. I will make a whole separate video about them, but today, I'll show how you can install and use the Cylinder Rotate plugin. First, go to the link in the description and then press Get Plugin. And then in Roblox Studio, open Toolbox. I will make a whole separate video about the toolbox too, so I'm not explaining it right now. Just follow the steps for now. The next step, go to your inventory and then go to the My Plugins section. And then find the plugin that you just got, and click it. And then click Install. Congrats! The plugin is now installed and you can use it by finding it in the Plugins section and clicking it to rotate the cylinder. Now let's get back to our game. I will make this cylinder a grey foil, or I changed my mind. Diamond plate will look better. Now I will duplicate this cylinder and move it to the other side. And I will duplicate and resize this cylinder and then change its shape to a block. But wait, I hear you saying to yourself, how does this guy see the bounding boxes but all I see is this? To see the bounding boxes, go to your View tab. And switch the selection style to bounding boxes. This may look worse than the outline one, but trust me, this is more useful and you'll get used to it in a day. Or if you want both styles at once, you can switch the selection style to both too. Now back to resizing. I will change my grid snap from 1 to 0.5 because I want to make this thinner. And I will rescale that a little bit more and convert its shape into a block. I'll change its color to something blue and group all the door parts together. I'll rename this model to door. I'll rename the blue part to passable part. And I'll rename the other parts to sides. But it seems like you can't rename multiple parts at once, right? Wrong. You just need to rename them using the Properties tab if you want to rename multiple parts at once. I will change the blue part's material to foil and its transparency to 0.5. Double checking if it's anchored or not. And let's play the game. We want this door to be passable, but it's currently not passable. Let's make it passable by making it unable to collide with other parts. To do that, select the part and scroll down until you see the CanCollide property. It's set to true by default, just click it to set it to false. Now if we test the game, you'll see that now I can pass through this part because it's not colliding anymore. I want to make an invisible wall that prevents you from jumping out from this structure. To do that, I will duplicate the passable part and move it to the right place. I will set its transparency to 1, and I will enable its CanCollide property. And if I play now, I can't pass through it because there is an invisible wall. But you can still slide your character through the corner. Let's fix that. I will duplicate the invisible wall and put it to the place that it should be at. But first, I want to rename those parts to invisible wall. And then I will move them outside of the door model to make them a separate model called invisible walls. And I will make the weird thingy group a folder instead of a model. And I will ungroup the old model after renaming the folder. I will make the invisible walls a folder too. First ungroup, then group as a folder. And then I'll rename the folder to invisible walls. Now let's finish making the invisible walls. I will temporarily make them visible so it's easier to build. We need a wedge to fill this area because if we use normal parts, it will stick out from the other side. You might be saying that it shouldn't be a problem since they will become invisible. But in the future, we might want to do something that requires the player to pass from the bottom of the slope, but that wall will not let them pass. So to exactly cover the area we want, we should convert this part to a wedge. But the wedge is currently oriented in the wrong direction. It would have been great if there was a plugin called Wedge Rotate similar to Cylinder Rotate, but there isn't. So we have to manually rotate it. I am rotating the wedge until I get the right orientation. Thinking in 3D is so hard, but you get used to it over time. Now that I've got the right orientation, I'm rescaling this to fit the empty space. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to fill the whole space without sticking out. And now I will fill the remaining space with a duplicate of the other invisible wall. Ctrl D is the shortcut for duplicating if you forgot. Now I will duplicate the floor wedge, rotate it 90 degrees 2 times, and place it to the other side. I will do the same for the invisible walls, except for the rotating. And then I will make a roof so the players can't jump out. And lastly, I will make these walls actually invisible. Don't forget to double check the CanCollide property. If it's false then the character will just pass through it. Let's play test. And as you can see, I can't pass through the invisible walls. But if I release the Parkour Pro inside me, I can get on top of them. Let's leave that as an intended feature and continue the tutorial. Just like you can change the color of objects from its properties, you can also change them from the top bar like so. I will make all of these parts a different color. And I will unanchor them so that they're affected by gravity and external forces. I will turn their shape into a sphere and make them different sizes. I think you got what I'm going for here, but if you didn't, you'll understand in a second. Yay, we made rollable balls. Oh no, it's out of control. No, oh come here. I give up. Let's continue with the tutorial. I will now show you why you shouldn't anchor the workspace. First I'll insert a part and I want that part to float. But if the part is unanchored, it will fall down. I will make some more duplicates of that part. And I will anchor the whole workspace. But now these balls are anchored too, even though they were supposed to be unanchored. You might say these are just a few things, I can easily unanchor them. But what if you have a whole game where a lot of things are supposed to be unanchored? And then you anchor the workspace, and then your game is broken. I will undo the anchoring with Ctrl Z. And I will individually select and anchor the parts that are supposed to float. The moral of the story is, don't anchor the workspace. Anyways, now I will make these parts white. And I will make them neon for them to glow. And I will make their shape a corner wedge because why not? I will rotate them 90 and 180 degrees with Ctrl R. And I will turn off the cast shadow property of those parts. Now I want to show you a part type called Truss. Truss is like a thing that characters can climb on top of. But you can't insert a truss from the top bar. To insert a truss, click the plus icon near the things in the Explorer. I will now resize this truss. The resizing of trusses is a little bit complicated, but if you do experiments by yourself, you'll learn better. As you can see, you can't scale the trusses in both directions at once. I will recolor this truss, and then duplicate it, and then play the game. But don't forget to anchor the trusses before playing. Let's go near the trusses. You can press W to climb up of a truss, and you can press S to climb down. Now I will make each of these floating wedges a tower that you can climb on top of. Let's reposition them a little bit, double check if they're anchored, and if we play now you will see that I can't climb on top of this tower. I will put those towers in a folder and rename each tower to match their purpose in the future. This tower will be unclimbable. This tower will have a truss. And this tower will have a ladder which I haven't explained yet. So let's add a truss into this model, and anchor it. The characters can climb on a truss even if it sticks out just a little bit. But I will undo that because I want the players to see the 3D-ness of the truss. And I will resize that truss to fit the size of the whole tower. I will duplicate the truss tower and make the duplicate thinner so the truss sticks out from both ways. Now I will show you how to make a ladder. First, start by inserting a part. I will duplicate the already existing part because that's easier. And I will put it in its own folder to be more organized. So a ladder is basically like multiple parts with a gap between them, just like a real-life ladder, or a Minecraft ladder. I will make this tower's material smooth plastic because I'm tired of the glow. Now let's finish this ladder by duplicating the parts using Ctrl D. If you didn't know, you can decrease a neon part's glow by making its color darker. But I will just make their material smooth plastic. When you increase the transparency of a truss, it looks a little weird. But if you really think about it, this look is the logical thing. And I want to make another tower that is just a truss. I'll rename this folder to Towers. I should have done that when I first created this folder, but sometimes you make weird choices. I'll make this truss invisible, and I'll rename it to Invisible Truss, and I'll duplicate the ladder and make it invisible too. Let's play the game. I can't climb on top of this, but I can climb on top of this. I can climb on top of this from the both sides of it, and I can climb on top of this ladder too. There was an invisible truss, so let's climb on top of it. Let's climb on top of the invisible ladder too. Okay, enough climbing. I'll make these semi-visible instead of completely invisible. You can insert a spawn location from the model tab like this. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the parts that I'm inserting are red instead of gray. That is because while I was coloring the balls, I selected red from the color selector in the top bar. Now I selected medium stone gray, so now the parts that I'm inserting are gray. If you select yellow they will be yellow. But the default is medium stone gray, so I like to leave it as medium stone gray. I will lock the spawn location so I don't accidentally select it. And lastly, I will make a simple obby with no checkpoints. You cannot use spawn locations as checkpoints, so don't try that. I will show you how to make checkpoints in later videos. Subscribe and turn on notifications if you don't want to miss it. I put this part in a separate folder called obby. I will move it upwards and anchor it. And I will make the rest of the obby by duplicating this part. I think you now understand how building works in Roblox Studio. So I won't narrate the things I'm doing. But if you didn't understand, feel free to rewatch the video. If you're not sure about whether you understand or not, if you can recreate the things I'm about to do by yourself, you understood. If you can't recreate some of the things, I recommend you to rewatch the video or ask me in the Discord server. And I will show you how you can publish your game at the end of this video, so don't close the video yet. Okay, now I will not talk. Try to recreate the things I'm doing. It doesn't need to be exactly the same. You can add or subtract whatever you want. You can send your results in the creations channel on my Discord server. The link is in the description. In the next video, we'll learn about the toolbox and the basics of the particle system. And in the third episode of this tutorial series, we'll start learning about scripting. Subscribe if you don't want to miss those. You can also join my Discord server, and when you join, it will ask you what do you want to be notified of. You can choose uploads to be notified when I upload. I said I won't narrate the things I'm doing, but this is important and you might have forgotten it without noticing. Press Ctrl L to switch between global and local axes. Okay, now I will really shut up. But don't forget to subscribe and join my Discord server. And again, if you don't understand, rewatch the video, and if you still don't understand, ask me in Discord. Now I will speed up the video and add a speedrun music. Try to recreate it to test your skills, and don't forget that practice makes perfect. Okay, so now I was going to talk about the particle system, but I'll talk about it in the next video. So ignore the particle emitting star while I'm playing the game. Now I'll show you how you can publish your game. But first, I'll show you how you can find your game on Roblox. Go to create.roblox.com. Go to the creations section and click your game. Click the three dots near your game and click view on Roblox. It is saying that you should first publish your game to play it on Roblox. So let's publish our game. Click file and click publish to Roblox. That's it. Now if we refresh the page, the warning went away and there is a bright green play button. But currently, only the creators of this game can play it because it's private. To make the game publicly available to everyone, go back to create.roblox.com and click settings, and then click public. Click save changes. Now everyone can play your game. Let's play it. Roblox is now loading, Get ready. Okay, Roblox loaded, but it's a little bit laggy. It's probably because my potato PC can't play Roblox at medium graphics and record at the same time. Let's decrease the graphics. Okay, it's smoother now. Let's play the game a little bit and see what we've accomplished in this video. Oh no, I just noticed that I forgot to anchor this truss. It fell down. I'll Alt F4 Roblox and anchor the truss in Studio. Now let's play again. Everything is at where it should be at. Nothing is falling apart. Let's go through that door. As you can see, I can go through the door because its CanCollide property is set to false. And the invisible walls are working too. I can climb on these trusses. I will walk near these balls. Do you remember how we made these parts that represent axes? Let's climb on top of this tower and do some pro parkour to get to the obby. Can you guess which one is correct? Certainly not blue, lol. Let's try again. And I will give you a pro tip to do these kinds of obbies for staying this long in the video. If a part's CanCollide property is false, your camera passes through it. So it's not green, the right path is red. Thank you so much for watching the video until the end. I hope you learned something from this video. In the next video, we'll learn about the particle system, and after that we'll start scripting. If you don't want to miss those, subscribe and turn on notifications and join my Discord server. And don't forget to like and comment too, so I get motivated doing these videos. See you in the next video. Bye.